Hello everyone, and welcome back to Game Easy, Roll Good. I am now starting my segments here on the class and subclass changes. There's a lot to go over, so I'm kind of just releasing these all at once because I don't want to take, 12 to 24 weeks to release all of these videos. That would just take way too gosh dang long. So I'm releasing them sort of in bundles. You're going to see martial class changes on 1 week, followed by martial subclass changes the next week, followed by spellcasting class changes the next week, and then spellcasting subclass changes the following week after that. I'll be putting these in playlists so that they're more easily digestible, so you can kind of watch them back to back. So let's go ahead and get started with the Barbarians. And also, if you notice that maybe I'm not changing clothes between videos, that's why, because I'm probably filming them back to back. So Barbarians, Barbarian class changes. Barbarians have been pretty bodaciously buffed. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So starting with their core traits, we're going to see that there's been pretty similar changes to all starting equipment. It used to be such that you had an A and B choice, and this was choices between two different kinds of armor and weapon combinations. But now in the 2024 Player's Handbook, you have a choice between an armor and weapon sort of set, or you have a choice between just starting gold, and then you can kind of buy whatever you want with that gold. The starting gold, I don't think quite matches. I think it's usually works out to slightly above average, based on what it was for the starting gold, the optional starting gold in 2014. But now you can kind of pick and choose basically just on armor or that starting gold. Secondly, for multi-class inheritance, and what I mean by multi-class inheritance is when you multi-class into Barbarian, what features of them do you get? Were there any changes there? As far as the core traits go, the only thing that's been removed here is simple weapon proficiency, and the reason that has been removed is because all classes now have at least simple weapon proficiency. There were situations where the wizard and the sorcerer, I think even the rogue, had select certain weapons that they could use, but now it's just everyone has at least simple weapons. All right, so moving on to level 1, we have the Barbarian's Rage feature. So this has had quite a few changes. Rage damage also specifically includes unarmed strikes, where it didn't specifically do that before. So you can be an unarmed barbarian if you can somehow manage that. And the uses have been capped at 6. Up once you're at level 20. At level 20 in 2014, it used to be unlimited, but now you just only ever have 6 uses of rage. I don't know how many of us were ever playing a barbarian at level 20 long enough for unlimited uses to really feel like it's something that we're actually missing out on. There are ways to refresh your rages a little more often, so you technically have more than 6 a day, but we'll take a look at that a little bit later. Next, it lasts until the end of your next turn, which I think was always the case, but now it also lasts up to 10 minutes as long as you keep maintaining that rage, which is up from 1 minute in 2014. So you can also extend rage by, of course, making an attack roll against an enemy. You can also force an enemy to make a saving throw, or you can just use your bonus action again to extend the rage if you're not able to do either of those things. Notably, you no longer extend the rage when you take damage, but now all the ways to cause your rage to keep going are now completely under the player's control, including just willing it to happen through your bonus action, which is really cool. The second thing here at level 1 is that they get access to weapon masteries. They start off with 2 masteries at level 1. This increases to 3 at level 4, and then 4 at level 10. And they are one of 2 classes that get more than 2 masteries throughout the class scaling. Moving on to level 2, we have changes to danger sense. You no longer have to see the source of danger, which is really nice. It only doesn't work if you're incapacitated. So if for whatever reason, like if you're asleep, you would still get triggered. You would still get damaged by whatever. You wouldn't have advantage on the saving throw if you were subjected to one while you're sleeping, for example. Reckless attack now lasts until the start of your next turn, whereas previously in 2014, it only lasted until the end of your turn. So if you made an opportunity attack or something like that, you would no longer have advantage on that attack, even though people still have advantage against you the whole time. So it's nice. That's a nice little quality of life change. We're really happy to see that one. Moving on to the next changes, we have level 3. So they added a primal knowledge feature. This was added to the player's handbook from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, where it was a optional feature before. One thing to note is that it no longer grants an additional proficiency at level 10, where that's what it did previously in Tasha's. However, it does allow you to additionally add your strength instead of the normal ability associated with acrobatics, intimidation, perception, stealth, or survival while raging. So while you are raging, if you make an intimidation roll, you add your strength modifier to it instead of charisma. Same with perception, stealth, survival, and acrobatics. You're just adding your strength bonus to those instead of whatever the normal ability score is for that. I don't know how often that'll come up while you're raging. I don't know how often you'll want to expend the use of a rage, in maybe like an exploration setting, just to have advantage on survival or something like that. But we'll see. We'll see how that shakes out. At level 7, this is when we get the next big change for barbarians. They have the feral instinct. The text about acting normally at the start of combat has been, if you were surprised, has been removed, just because surprise is now very different. So basically there's no real change there because surprise is different. And then, so that makes the text irrelevant. And then they also added instinctive pounce, which means when you enter rage as part of the bonus action, when you enter rage, you can move up to half your speed. So that's officially been added to the player's handbook. Moving on to level 9, the Brutal Strike is a new feature. New-ish feature. It replaces Brutal Critical, which before just added an additional weapon damage die to your critical hits. So Brutal Strike is now something very functionally different. So let's take a look at what it says. It says, if you use Reckless Attack, you can forego any advantage on one strength-based attack roll of your choice on your turn. The chosen attack roll mustn't have disadvantage. So this language is very similar to sneak attack in this way. So you have to have advantage on the roll in the first place, and then you're giving up that advantage, and you can't get advantage from any other way, but you also mustn't have disadvantage. So then it says, if the chosen attack roll hits, the target takes an extra 1d10 damage of the same type dealt by the weapon or unarmed strike, and you can cause one brutal strike effect of your choice. You have the following effect options. So there's Forceful Blow, where you can push the target 15 feet away from you and then move half your speed straight toward the target without provoking opportunity attacks. Very cool. Basically a free push mastery almost. Basically better than the push mastery because there's no size limit and it pushes farther. And then there's a Hamstring Blow, which the target's speed is reduced by 15 feet until the start of your next turn, and a target can only be affected by one of these hamstring blows at a time, the most recent one. So I think one thing to note here is that there are a lot of pushing effects in the 2024 rules. There's a lot of persistent AoEs from spellcasting allies to push enemies in and out of. So I think, again, pushing is going to be very good with organized groups. Hamstring is something that would kind of work pretty well with like the Slasher feat, for example, where the Slasher feat reduces speed by an additional 10 feet. So if you have Hamstring Blow and the Slasher feat on a slashing weapon, that's 25 feet that they're slowed. If an ally has the slow mastery for whatever reason, that's an additional 10 feet for 35 feet, where you can basically just pin someone in place, which is pretty nuts. All right, moving on to the next one, we have level 11. We see that Relentless Rage has been buffed a little bit. The remaining hit points are now equal to twice your Barbarian level. This is up from 1 hit point. I guess the only situation where this would be not great is if you got hit by something that doesn't allow you to regain hit points. But yeah, it's still a buff. Nice to see. Moving on to level 13, they have improved Brutal Strike. Again, this replaces the second iteration of Brutal Critical. So it basically adds a couple more options for your Brutal Strike, which is Staggering Blow. The target has disadvantage on the next saving throw it makes, and it can't make opportunity attacks until the start of your next turn. And then there's Sundering Blow, which before the start of your next turn, the next attack roll made by another creature against this target gains +5 bonus to the attack roll. And an attack roll can only have 1 bonus from this feature. So you can't like stack multiple barbarians and have like +15 or anything like that. Avoiding grapples and shoves is now a saving throw in 2024. So if you want to try and land it more reliably or set up a caster ally to land a big control spell like a hold monster or banishment, Staggering Blow is going to be very useful in that way. Sundering Blow, it isn't bad, but it's really going to depend on which ally is making an attack roll next in initiative. Allies with one big burst attack probably want this the most, such as a rogue with a sneak attack. But I don't think it's just that useful. I mean, it's never not useful. More accuracy is better, especially if you're fighting a target with a high armor class. But I probably wouldn't use the Sundering Blow quite as often. Moving on to level 15, we have Persistent Rage. So you can now restore all expended uses of Rage when you roll initiative once per long rest. That's good to see. So again, for example, I think at this time you either have 5 or 6 uses of Rage. So let's say you start You used 5 of them already, and then you start initiative, and then you can just get all 5 back. So that's about 10 uses of rage per day. And then it says that rage now lasts 10 minutes by default without the need to expend it every turn. So you can rage for 10 minutes at a time without having to worry about making an attack roll or forcing a saving throw or using your bonus action to extend the rage. So that's pretty good. This isn't much different than the 2014 version. It's just, updated to the modern rules. Moving on, we have the level 17 feature, which is the improved Brutal Strike once more time. This again replaces the 3rd iteration of Brutal Critical. It says that the extra damage of your Brutal Strike now increases to 2d10. And in addition, you can use 2 different Brutal Strike effects whenever you use the Brutal Strike feature, which is pretty nuts. Because again, I think the push one is really good, but if you just imagine the push one along with the slow one, you can push them back 15 feet and then slow them 15 feet, which means you can kite people pretty well as a barbarian, which is pretty nuts. Or you can push them back and then you can give them a disadvantage on a saving throw, and if you push them into an AoE effect, they have now disadvantage on that saving throw to avoid the damage. A lot of really cool combinations to go with it. Moving on, we have the level 19 feature. You're going to see this on every class, so you can now choose an epic boon feat when they hit level 19. Again, this isn't tied to the class. This is when you hit level 19 period. You do have access to epic boon feats, but you only right. So it's not at level 19 in a class. It's at level 19. Once you're level 19 or higher, you can start choosing these feats once you have a feat ability unlocked in your class. I hope that makes sense. And finally, at level 20 for the Barbarian, they have the Primal Champion. This is their capstone feature. This was altered just a little bit. So the maximum strength for strength and constitution is increased to 25, where it was 24 previously. And this is just to account for the possible +1 from the epic boons at level 19, which could give you basically a 21 strength or a 21 constitution. And then the +4 that you get to your strength and constitution from Primal Champion would increase that to 25, right? So let's look at a summary of what the Barbarian looks like now. So we can see that Rage was slightly nerfed. You went from unlimited uses at level 20 to just 6, which is technically up to 12 if you use the persistent Rage feature to refresh your uses of Rage. So it's, again, I don't know how much FOMO we're actually missing here, because I don't know how many people played, level 20 Barbarians for a long time where unlimited Rage actually mattered. And then we can also see that the number of proficiencies granted by Primal Knowledge was nerfed. You just don't get the extra one at level 10, but you do get the one, and then you do get the additional feature where you can use strength while raging for a few non-strength checks, which is great. And then things highlighted in green here are new to the Barbarian, like completely new. I didn't highlight Brutal Strike here because it technically just replaces Brutal Critical, but we can see just across the board that Barbarians just have been buffed here. And like, they're not necessarily doing the most damage necessarily, but they have a lot of different utility now that they didn't before. Brutal Strike is really, really, really good. I think it's definitely worth playing a Barbarian, at least to the first one. Maybe, if you get to the last one, I can't remember which, it's at like level 17. That's also very good to be able to use 2 of them at once. Very exciting. I'm very excited about the Barbarian class. So let me know what you think about Barbarians, what you're looking forward to, any builds that you have in mind. Let me know down in those comments. While you're on the way down to those comments, please hit that like button. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.